So when it comes to the current mobile market, there are a lot of phones that you can easily pick and say, this is a good phone and this will work for me, especially with current phones having just a lot of power compared to the past itself. But something that I often want to do is look back at phones. Talk about phones that are from, for instance, the beginning of the year that we're in. And one of those phones is the OnePlus 10 Pro. With the simple question, how is it now that they got the Android 13 update? And is this still in general worth it? Simply put, of course it is. But let's discuss what the update means in general day-to-day life experience. Not really in depth on every small single change, because I feel like there's no need for that. So I've been loving and liking the OnePlus 10 Pro for a while, and I think if you compare it to many options out there with their current price, it's probably one of the better phones you can get. Simply because of the price to performance ratio. Even if it misses out on those basic important features like the 3.5mm headphone jack and micro SD, I still think it holds good value. But today we have the discussion on the performance after getting the Android 13 update and seeing how it is in day-to-day life. Because there are some noticeable changes, but those are mostly visuals. Because in terms of performance, it still performs really well, just like it was with Android 12. Now before we start talking about performance in the sense of day-to-day life, I quickly want to highlight one thing. Before I went the 3D Mark test on it, the ultimate one that has 20 loops, and it got hot and stopped after 9 loops. But after getting the Android 13 update, it managed to finish it. Did it get hot? Yeah, you bet. It reached 49 degrees, but hey, colder months can wait to heat up, right? But jokes aside, it did get hot, but it did complete the run itself. But let's talk about day-to-day life experience, beginning with the camera. And this is a really simple one. For my feeling, not much has changed. It still performs really well. The camera combination is still solid, even more so for the lower price that it sells now. And I still can take some solid shots in it. Possibly a bit more consistent, but honestly, it's just a very small part of it. If you want a camera that works well with a great main and ultra wide, I still think OnePlus does a good job here. And while it cannot compete with the top dogs like Vivo, Xiaomi and Sony, I still think it does well, and it is never sold as of course a high-end flagship. Even though it has most of those features, it simply never was priced like Vivo, Xiaomi or Sony. And of course this includes low light shots as well. Now one strength is that you can record 4K and 120 frames per second on the OnePlus 10 Pro. So good quality. Oh, you're not looking too pleased with me. But this is one of the only phones I know that can actually do that. And of course, to see stability, looking around, just normal recording in 4K, 30 frames per second. And yes, you can change to ultra wide. And of course, you can zoom in more, but it doesn't switch to the other one. But here, it does allow you to switch to, of course, that ultra wide in 4K and 30 frames per second. But let's start talking about the software experience, because there are some visual changes. The top-down menu, for instance, does have a very different look to it, and I love the little details. For instance, change the brightness and the wheel around the light will turn left or right depending on whether you make it brighter or dimmer. Then also a small thing is when you open an app in the app drawer, if you have that app at your homepage and you go to the homepage, it will go then to the homepage it was placed on. I like this small detail and it makes a lot of sense for me. It's just a general use where I feel like, yeah, that makes sense. It works well. General performance though, I still feel like this is a smooth experience. We still have that lovely switch to mute, vibrate or put the sound on. We still of course have one of the better displays with a great brightness and of course 120Hz refresh rate. And of course it is a curved display, something you either like or don't. For myself, I still think it looks better in terms of design, making it look more modern, but that's my opinion about it. But in day-to-day experience, battery life is a big factor of course. So how is it with the OnePlus 10 Pro? Well, I should say it isn't the best, but it all depends on usage. Let me explain. As stated in the beginning of the video, the OnePlus 10 Pro can get pretty toasty because of the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 inside that is manufactured by Samsung, compared to the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 and the 8 Gen 2 that are done by TSMC. So yes, it does get toasty, and a hot phone does affect battery life in general. More heat means less battery life, therefore battery life depends a bit on what you do. If you are like me, using it to watch YouTube videos, calls, chats, take pictures and so on, battery life is solid and I can easily make it till the end of the day. If you are however someone that loves to play games a lot, I would say battery life isn't good. It isn't the worst, that crown is still easily held by my Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra, but I would say you need to top it up in between. Lucky enough, you do have that charger included with the phone and it charges up at 80 watt. So depending on your use, battery life is either good or just meh. So, question answered. Is it still worth it? Yeah, definitely. It just depends a little bit on what you are looking for. It's gonna be one of those phones where if you want the best experience, there are some parts where I feel like OnePlus does settle a little bit, especially when it comes to the heat itself, as I talked about in the video itself, where it can get quite toasty, especially with that Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 that already had that issue. It just gets quite hot. So if you are playing a lot of games, would I advise this one? No. Would I advise, for instance, a device like the OnePlus 10T? Then yes, because that's more gaming orientated just in general, but also it does have the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, which doesn't get anywhere near as warm as the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. Also, I would say that overall with the OnePlus 10 Pro, I still think that the camera is quite capable. Yes, again, it was never the phone that aimed to be the best of the best itself. It never was priced like that as well, as I stated. But overall, in terms of day-to-day life experience, it definitely still is a good phone. It really just depends on what you are looking for in a phone itself. And for me, if you want a balanced experience with a good display, overall decent battery life depending on your use of course, and of course pretty good software support, I would say that the OnePlus 10 Pro definitely is a phone that is still worth it. Again, there isn't much I can talk to you about when it comes to day-to-day life experience. That feels very different compared to what it was when it had Android 12 on it. But just in general, with this Android 13 update, I still think that this phone holds true and holds its value really well, especially for prices that it's going for now. It makes a lot of sense to buy a OnePlus 10 Pro, even though it misses out on those basic features that I find important, the 3.5mm headphone jack and of course micro SD. Either way, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe, like and everything, and of course happy holidays, because it's still in December. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this video and talk to you guys in the next.